They got a pretty nice looking JX-8P. Screen's really good. Nice and bright still in the daylight. It's obviously reflecting a lot there, but it's you can even you can still see it in the daylight. The seller said somebody had worked on the screen to bring the brightness back up, so something had been done there, but otherwise it's in really good conditions now. That often you find like a real, this has come off with the sweat of somebody's hand on there basically, and it looks awful. So I was looking for one without that. Memory cartridge is good. It came with a memory cartridge as well. There's a couple of little small dings on the paintwork, but other than that it's great. A couple of oxidised screws on the back which I've swapped. Swap a couple more of those if I see them. There is some in the power supply. I've already worked on the key bed, so I've had the whole key bed out, washed all the keys in the dishwasher, dried them and put them back in. This is originally like just some tape on both sides to stop. There's like you can see the key sandwiches in between that metal, and you can see the orange is in, the yellow is in between the key now. Well, that's like a little notch, and otherwise that's just on a bare metal. So they had this tape in there which is just destroyed at this stage. It's very old. So I use this carpet tape, which is basically like a thin gaffer tape but double-sided. So that's going to be held in place by the keys, the yellow like double-sidedness. So it's a really good solution. You can just cut it off with a knife close to the edge of this hole where the key passes through, and then there's sort of notch. So it's a bit bright in there. There you go. The notch will fit onto that, and it just stops it being plastic on metal, so it'll last longer. The key springs are inside here, but you don't see those. That's the aftertouch. I'll talk about that in a second. Oh yeah, here they are. Look. So again, it's not very bright, is it? But anyway, there was a problem with the velocity, and I was able to fix that. We had to hit it really hard to get it to register a proper velocity. I talk about velocity and aftertouch. So when you hit the softly, it'll give you a soft note, and then hard, it'll give you a hard note. We had to hit it really hard. And it's because there's like 3 springs in the leaf spring arrangement, and you can see that middle spring in there, just in the middle. I had to bend the middle spring, retension it just a little bit for each key. Basically every key was affected, and you had to. It meant that the spring had to travel like 2mm at least before it started to be measured for the velocity. So yeah, there's this extra distance that it had to go before the velocity calculation started, because it's 2 switches. So as it leaves one contact and then makes another, it measures the time between that. So because it had to do another 2mm before it left the first contact, then that meant you had to hit it really hard in order for it to get a decent measurement. Otherwise it was just, thinking you'd hit it slow every time. So I was able to get in there and bend those very gently with some needle nose pliers a couple of times. See the middle leaf spring in that arrangement there. I'll try and put something on the video. So then the little hammer there presses the pad. See that going down? So it had to, it wasn't touching that first spring at the top. So to bend it so that it was already ready to leave and then go to touch the other spring at the bottom, because it was having to go like this and then it would leave, and then it would start the velocity measurement. So yeah, now it works much better. It took a little while, but it's just a mechanical thing. I don't know what had gone on with it, but yeah, these side things were very rusty. I've sanded those down and put some light oil on them. So the other thing I want to do is to make a bracket for these. These are the output jacks, and they don't have any drain relief. Normally these are on a different board in other Roland synths anyway. I've seen them on the Boss units, like little mixers and stuff, they don't have any strain relief, so, but you wouldn't expect it from a big professional synth like this. So I'm going to try and manufacture a bracket that they fasten on to, and then it kind of bends around there. There's not much space, but you can just about get one in there. You can't see much more there. So basically they'll be attached to a piece of metal, and then the piece of metal will be attached to the outside of the case, and that stops them moving around. When you put a jack in from the outside, it's just all the force is going directly onto the circuit board and into the body of this. So, you know, it's a poor design really. You know, you can see from the outside there's just nothing. There's nothing there, they're just directly attached to the circuit board, and that's it. So any movement here just goes directly into the solder joints and the traces, so you won't see anything from the outside, it'll be on the inside. Like this has, you know, they have the little attachments. So they have a bracket inside, sort of part of the connector really, with the MIDI ones. You can't really see it, but they do have little connectors at the side. So I'm going to try and make something from aluminium, I think, just bend it around, and it'll give it some strain relief then. It doesn't need to be so strong. So yeah, I've labelled these. When I take it apart, I can recommend labelling them like that, because then, yeah, they label, you can number them, but it's like if you just go down like that, then you know it's on both sides then. So if I take that out, you can see that it's going to be, you know, it's going to line up to the same point. Same with this one, and where it's really important is that one down there, because it doesn't have anything in the end one, which is, again, is a poor design really. So if you transpose that one down that way, then you're going to fuck the entire synth up, because they don't have any short circuit protection or overload protection or anything like that. So yeah, these, you know, they're all going to line up to those things that are drawn on them, and then yeah, you can't get it wrong then. As you'll see, it's going to be there. So yeah, yeah. So that's yeah, just a little tips there for. Whoops. Little tips there for working on it, you know, because these are, they're not there. You can't get those next door because you know, they're not they're different size, so you can't. But these two, there's two keyboard ones that are the same size, so somebody already put a bit of that colour on and the colour there so that you can see which one's which. But this is whoever had the keyboard out to work on it before me, and I'm pretty sure that they must have damaged those springs with the making the velocity weak, because there's just no way to do that from the top side of the keyboard. You can't do that. It just, you can't put enough force on it to be able to do that. But once you've got all of these keys off and all of this, there's little things that you can barely see right now. They're all hanging loose. It's very tricky to handle it because this is really quite a heavy cage. This big metal assembly is quite weighty, and these little things are quite weak, and if you put it down then it's going to lean on them, you know, and I think that's what's happened. But anyway, I've sorted it out now, so it's fine, but you never know what you're going to find in these. So one of the last jobs, I might replace a display, but I might not, it depends. It's a bit of an expense, but I could always sell the other old display, because it is beautiful, the old display, but it's not you can, with this new firmware operating system I'm putting in, you can have another line on the display so it'll tell you more information about it. But I'll see how I get on with the original one. But then I'm going to have to replace all of these switches. You can see each of those four is one switch. So you've got 51 of them. All of these. All of those. So they're quite easy to replace, really. I think the new ones won't be an exact fit, because these ones have an actuator, which is like a round plunger, basically like this, with a little stick, like a weird sort of mushroom shape, and that fits over the top of the actual switch. So that's called the actuator, because that actuates the switch. They probably might be a little bit loose, but good idea was to put a tiny bit of blue tack, or well, it's not even blue tack now, but it's like a stuff you put posters up with, you know. I think you can still get blue tack, but mostly white or yellow or something these days. But anyway, it's like a putty. It doesn't go off. I think it goes hard or something maybe over time, but it doesn't glue, you know. But I've seen other users like just balance the board with the actuators on and just sort of lift it up from the underneath like that to get it in, and then once it's screwed in, then it's fine, you know. They're not going to fall out because there's like a hole in where the actuator fits into as well, and it just prevents these from ripping. Sometimes these do rip as well, but yeah, mostly they're alright on this one. It's gone a little bit pale, this. I've seen other ones that are a lot darker, and yeah, it's not looking that yellow now on the camera, but I believe these are a little bit yellow. So yeah, I've had a few bits of advice from a few people on this and how to make it you know, electrically better, and like what parts to maybe try for these things and stuff like that. So I've got all of those on order now, and I'm waiting for it to arrive from now. So this is the only one that you can't get new anymore, but maybe there's a modern replacement for it, but it's just a weird inline regulator for 15 volts, plus or minus 15 volts, so it gets like 18 volts off of this bridge rectifier. That's taking AC, and then it makes DC out of that one, and this one makes DC also, and that's for the 5 volts. This one's for the 15 volts, plus or minus, because it gives 15 volts to this. It makes plus or minus 15 out of it, or maybe it just, anyway, this one's for 5 volts, this one's for the 15 volts, so then you've got plus or minus 15. There's all these two power transistors are for, and then you've got the 5 volt regulator. So these are not regulators, this is a regulator. So it doesn't run hot, but it does fail, and it fails like with a just sort of invisible failure mode. You don't really notice that it's happened. So this thing will continue working, but these will start to regulate at like 18 or 19 volts, which, you know, they're not designed for, and they don't like to, and this doesn't want to, the rest of the synth doesn't want to receive, you know, 19 volts. It needs to be 15 before it hits these. So this can bite you in the ass with this failure mode, because it's not obvious that it's happened. It won't stop working. It'll continue doing it, and then either these will burn out or some other problem happens. So I will be replacing that with a new one, but it's new old stock, so it's like far from ideal. But I'm going to replace these two with modern devices, so they won't be new old stock, but they'll be similar spec, pretty much the same spec, similar enough for it not to make a difference. And this one is a 5 volt regulator, which is just, you know, they're still in production anyway, the 7805 classic. So they're all of these components are going to be replaced, every single one on the power supply, even these film caps, which they will still work, but yeah, I'll just do everything. I will keep those for something else if I need a filter capacitor for something that's not in a power supply. It's not maybe so specific or whatever, but they still work well, these anyway. You don't really need to replace them, but I may as well, because there's only 3 more replacements, and then the entire board is done up and new in one go, you know. So it would be annoying if it did happen to fail, you know, you just have to go replace it anyway. So they're 40 years old, it's in the power supply, just replace them. Previously I'd just replace these, and then I'd reflow the other stuff, like reflow this and these, and put the new heatsink paste, although these have to be isolated from the heatsink. That's why they're like this, and they don't have any paste. They have those, like, it's an insulating pad but also a heat transferring pad, because they will short out if the if they touch in metal, so that's why they're like that, and they're not screwed in, they're screwed down with these clamps and not using the mounting tab. I think it's because they're different. This one's MPN, this one's PMP, so I think that's why. And then I don't know, maybe they just did that the same, but guess I'll put some heatsink compound in and just screw them in. I've got some screws down there. I'll pull them off from. They tend to be a good tight fit though, that's what they're designed for. It'll just thread into the aluminium. So yeah, as I said, one of these will be mounted on there, maybe both of them, but I don't think there's any real need to have that one. I think I'll have this one there, the different package anyway. I think I'll have this one here with its own little heatsink, and that one, which is going to be doing more of the hard heating, although less because of the reduced power consumption, but then that's going to be going on that. This is already hot, like really hot, you know, almost too hot to touch just from these, so you know, if I'm putting more heat onto it, but there will be less overall, so it will be fine. But yeah, the power supply, transformer gets warm as well, yeah, pretty warm. But again, they're designed for that. So yeah, so that's going to be when that comes in from now. So I'll start with that, and then the switches. That's all in the same order. But then this, the OS and the RAM, and these little counter chips here. That's all coming in probably tomorrow actually. So I can start desoldering that first, which is good because I don't want to do like everything, get all of this all in progress, you know. It's like I'm going to put this mod in, right, is that working, you know, get that finalised, and right, that's good. Then I'll do the power supply, I'll confirm all of that's working, and then I'll do the buttons, you know. I don't want to pull out like all the boards and completely disassemble it. I'd like to work on one at once, get it done. Too many variables otherwise. Although, you know, when you're going in, it's good to do work while you're in there, you know, like that battery, you may as well, because I'm going to be desoldering loads of stuff on the board. I'll just back up the presets onto the cartridge or dump them into the new flash module. So that's it. I'm going to do the battery after I've done this mod. So I'll do this mod. When the mod's done, then it's much easier to get the presets off. Not the presets, but the RAM contents. So I'll dump that, which isn't possible to do a bulk dump with the current operating system. So I'll put the new operating system on, do a bulk dump of all of the stuff. So I've got it saved. There's a couple of nice patches on there, so I'll just save it all, and then once that's ready, then I'll change the battery, because then I'll lose the contents of the RAM. So it's best to do the bulk dump first, and then. But yeah, I'll just do battery. It's okay for now, but I don't want to have to think about it. Like, is it going to go bad while the thing's in there? And, you know, if I put it away for a while and then you come back and all the memory locations are gone, and it's just a pain in the ass, you know. So I just do that first before I move on, you know, and close it all up. But yeah, these have all got to come off again anyway, because I want to retrobite them, and I want to put the aftertouch strip in, the new aftertouch strip. So that should be interesting, putting that in, because yeah, I've used one before and it worked really well. So at least, you know, in testing it works good. So I know it's gonna work. Just looking forward to get the thing, sticking it on. There's some cabling that's elsewhere at the moment. It just attaches on there, and I'm just using the original kind of pressure strip sort of top bit, you know, so that they can transfer the force from the keys onto the new aftertouch strip, because you don't want to press directly on these strips. They're extremely thin, and you need to have something to kind of cushion it, you know. So I'm going to use the original part for that, because it's designed for it, of course. But yeah, I was looking at, you can change this digitizing circuit in here, which translates the pressure of the resistance of the original aftertouch strip into a digital value and then presents that to the CPU. But you can change the gain of that by swapping some resistors and stuff like this, but the aftertouch is clearly just shagged. I looked at there's a note from Roland and it says, you know, prior to this serial number, the aftertouch is really dodgy. We made some changes and this and that after the serial number. Mine was obviously before that. I checked the serial number and it was before that. And it was literally falling to pieces. Like some part just fell out at the other end, and so there's just no point in trying to do that with such an already, you know, destroyed piece. It was giving some resistance, but not much, and it won't stay together. It's already, you know, dismantling itself inside there. So I just scraped it off. It was a bit tricky to get it off. They used some pretty good glue to use the bottom bit, but I found that levering up the thing in bits, but not if you go all the way through it with a screwdriver, it'll break off in little pieces. But if you just lever it up gently, you can lever up more of it at once, and then that leaves you to less to scrape off afterwards. It was more difficult when I tried to do it in sort of in one, go right through with the screwdriver, it just break it off. So yeah, the aftertouch is a known issue in these things, and they're basically all Rolands into that era. And some other ones they used a similar technology, but sort of worked a bit better. Like the Kawaii one, for instance, that I replaced in my Arpeggiator, it's working fine. And I think it could be a touch more sensitive, but they're not so sensitive. They don't have much dynamic range, meaning that, you know, even when it is working good, it's like a little bit, you know, low resolution, let's say. You know, it's kind of it doesn't have much of a light or a respond to many changes in touch. You can press it and get it to do it, and it does it, but it's not, you know, it's not really nuanced. You know, it's kind of like it works, and when it's working, it sounds good, but it's the newer force sensitive resistors are much more sensitive, so you can get a better response from it, you know, so it'll still do the thing, but you can put more of a filter cut off sweep, you know, more expression into it, really. Yeah. So that's the advantage of the newer ones, you know. So God, plus I can't be bothered to mess about and try and save something that's just it's no good anymore. Clearly it's physically incapable of even staying in one piece inside the synth, so game over. Taking the main board out now. Obviously looks like these have been reworked. Maybe they've been replaced, I'm not sure, but hard to tell. I'll clean that up though, because it's pretty horrible. We'll clean these couple of switches here, and there's a bit of fluff and stuff in general. So there, a couple of decoupling caps there, bodges, another resistor there. It's from the factory, that there's a number of revisions. Some of them have got like little other bodge wires on. I won't turn it over now because I don't have my anti-static strap on right now, but I'm going to be desoldering on this side anyway. What I've forgotten, there's these 4 chips here, so I'll have to move that. CPUs somewhere around here, one of those two, and then the ROM has got a socket already, so yeah, that's good. Over here, yeah, we've got this is where the main board goes over, and there are the 2 switchboards, and this is the display board as well, so that's the display there. It just has one row of connectors. Looks like a couple of them have been resoldered. It's not been badly treated, this synth, it has been worked on. Okay, yeah, it has some like little bits of rust on it, like this is metal. Kind of feels like plastic, but it's metal. It's a bit under there, so I need to just give that a very light sanding, and once I've taken that board off, put a bit of oil on it, or maybe some nail varnish because it's painted, just to stop it from continuing. You know, these it's alright with a bit of oil on those are not treated anyway, but with that maybe a bit of nail harness. It won't colour match, but it don't matter because it's inside. And there was like a little bit on the inside of that. I took all of these plastic edges off and this one too, and then because it has the faders and stuff, you can't clean properly in that unless you give it a good soak. So I took it all apart. Oh, sorry. And yeah. So yeah, you need to unscrew these. That side panel comes off, then you can access the screws on the back there of the circuit board, and then that'll just lift out once you've taken the fader caps off the end, and then you can unscrew it from there, and then this just lifts out. You don't really need to disconnect anything. You can just sort of lay it on here while you take that and just wash it, because it's just plastic, it attaches to the metal here, and then it's nice to give it a proper wash, you know. It wasn't that dirty, but it's always better to wash things. It resets the energy as much as anything else, you know. It's clean then, and it's like it's cared for. You can give it a proper good scrubbing in the little bits with a toothbrush, you know, under water with some soap, and then it's better. So this will be later. My Mouser order is now on the way. It was some delay for some random reason, but I just could, I didn't actually need for this. There's 2 components that were delaying it, so I just said I'll just cancel those please and send it on. So there, it's on the way now. So, but anyway, I'm going to do this first, the mods to the CPU and the ROM and stuff, and then because this is all working, it's just they're not. Some of them are not very reactive, you know, so they time to replace them. But yeah, it's good to do it and get the mods done first with something that you know is totally functional, like switches and supply wires, you know, and then yeah, do that after, do these after. So I'll just put the main board back in with, you know, like most of the screws, but not all of them, and then test it, and then it's like, okay, good, it's working, pull it out again, pull these out. Although I might desolder them while they're still in there with the gun. It's easier to hold it down on that, you know. Maybe, we'll see. Anyway, it's good to have it held still, you know, and it's quite a really easy angle to work at that with the desoldering gun, you know. So I might just do the switches where they are and then just take them off and pull them out. I've probably soldered them out of the board. I wouldn't solder them in place, but desoldering it's a lot easier than soldering. You don't have to be as accurate, you know, but no, we'll see anyway. Not particularly difficult once you've taken them off. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do now. Is I'll just give it a bit of a clean down there with some cotton buds. There they are with the alcohol. Just a little bit of extra clean. Possibly, if I take this off here, it'll be because I put a little bracket in here to give some strain relief to those jacks, because that's why they've been resoldered. Because every time you plug it in, it just stresses those contacts. It's a stupid design, but now it's out. Now it's out. I can get a piece of metal and fit that. So then it'll just look something like this, really. They'll be connected to it, because they do have screw attachments under there, although they're really close to the board, aren't they? I didn't really notice that. You might not be able to even get a nut. Sorry, looking at the actual thing, you should look through the camera. You might not be able to get a nut in there, for fuck's sake, because it's so close to that. You can see, maybe you can see they do have a screw on the body, but they have to be there because they won't go through the hole in the case otherwise. But I don't know that you'll get a screw, you know what I mean? It's got like, you'll have to have a flat edge to an 8-sided nut on that, and it may not, there might be enough room for it to fit, but it wouldn't turn round, you know. Like it'll fit across it flat, but it won't, the edge of the two won't go up to turn around, to tighten it on. Otherwise probably people would have done it already, I think. I'll have a look anyway. But yeah, I'm going to redo this masterpiece of soldering anyway. It's probably not that bad, but they could have cleaned it up. Just looks better. I mean, they didn't really clean it up too much at the factory anyway, but still, alright. Soldering, desoldering. Alrighty, is it focused? I think so. It's a bit bright, isn't it? It's the brightest spot in the room though, it's great for doing the work. Yeah, that was the, what is that, the main ROM of the thing. So I was confusing the ordering guide for this thing. I should have had a socket to go with this, but I'm going to have to go to the shop and get one now because it was my mistake. But it says to look at this gate IC or this, and you can see that it's a 3, so that's a version 3, but the actual one you should be looking at is this one. So I think maybe it said to look at that one as well, and that they perhaps had one on like this, but this has got this, like, when they finalise a version, they don't need to use a sticker anymore because that's it, it's the last version. So, and then they just solder it on, you know, there's no point wasting the socket because they know they're not going to upgrade the OS anymore. So yeah, that's why I should have asked for a socket, but I was looking at this one and I was like, oh, it's in a socket, so I don't need a socket now. So I'm gonna go shop and get one now. Anyway, put a bit of business in the line of the the local electronics shop, which is quite a rarity that we've still got one. There's like 2 of them closed down, and there is still one. So yeah, yeah. It put up a little bit of a fight, but it wasn't too difficult. I've got desoldering gun, and it'd gone through mostly on the back. Got through all of them, but then there was still some attached on this side, so I just clipped the legs along one side close to the body of the chip, and then the legs were like pretty much ready to come out. It's just there was like 1 or 2, you know, that were still gone through, and once you've done those, then you can bend the chip up gently and slowly towards that, and then just with a bit of, you know, slow waggling, and the whole thing just came out without any need for any work on desoldering at the top on the side. But just those, like 1 or 2 on this side, you know, I tried getting it with the wick from the top side. It was mostly successful, but you still got 1 or 2. I think it was around that bit where you see in the middle there. It's making it look a little bit different than it is. There you go. So anyway, they came up clean with yeah, nothing going on, but they are all boards, these, you know, and they're small traces, so you know, you should really put a socket on there in case you want to change the ROM again in the future. They don't like being worked on continually, you know, and you know, stuff like that is a RAM chip. I replaced one without socketing the RAM on a different machine just because it came out so clean that, and I obviously didn't have a socket. And the RAM, you know, it's not really an interchangeable thing. Once it's gone, it's gone. It will last a very long time. It's not something like an OS or a ROM that you may choose to want a different version, you know. It's like, so it's unlikely to need much more soldering on something like that. But yeah, they don't like being soldered. I had to do the voices on the Juno, and I had to put some sockets in that then didn't fit my replacement voice cards that I got, and then I had to desolder them again, and it was good. It came off clean. All the things are still connected, but it was starting to look, you know, this is the last time you can do this for sure, because if they weren't plated through holes, you would have had to run some wires around, and yeah, you can do it, but you know, you'd rather not. It's just a wait. It's kind of a time killer for, you know. So yeah, use a socket. So I'm going to go get one. I'm going to go and get one because it is likely with this, you know, that it could say, oh, I've got a new version of that, you know, and then you can put that on instead of having to desolder the thing again, and you know, reduce the lifespan of the board. So yeah, this one can just be whipped out and the flash module put in, which is in there. It's taped over. I'll show you later. So this one's next. I add fresh solder to them. No, I didn't. No, I just reflow it, you know, and put some fresh on all the legs from the underneath, and then it'll come off easier, and then it gives it more solder to work with. More fresh solder, it likes to suck it up more. It'll get more of a vacuum if it's more liquid. And they're looking pretty dry, all the sockets. I mean, not the joint, not dry as in cold, as in it won't contact, but just, you know, they're not very shiny anymore, and they're kind of a bit dry, and there's not that much on them, you know, so put a bit more on and it gets a bit more, the solder sucker can get off a bit more substance to pull out, you know. So yeah, this one's 40 pins, so that should be funny, but I'm going to go and buy a new pair of side cutters in case I have to cut the legs on one side again, and just make it a bit quicker, a bit more accurate. And they design them not to all of the force stays in the cutters and doesn't transfer to the thing that you're cutting, which I don't know if you've ever cut. I mean, these worked okay, but they're a bit big really. But like if you cut your nails with something like that, something which I have done in the past, and they're getting like a little bit, you know, too long, then it will just makes your nail bang when you go to close it. It'll go like, and it will just bang your nail really hard. So yeah, that's the kind of force that you don't want going into the circuit board. These don't really do that so much, but even so, it's easier if you've got a nice sharp pair of side cutters if you need to cut these legs, because it's preferable to cut these legs off, because I'm not going to use that again. So it's preferable to cut them off rather than keep heating the board, trying to get it off with, you know, with solder or wick or the desolder. It's like, try a couple of times, and then if there's any still connected through, I'll just cut them off, you know. And then yeah, as I said, when you can lever it up that way, then the other side just comes out without any difficulty. So yeah, I'll probably go for that one again if it's been a little bit more difficult. They're nice double-sided boards these, and they're good, but it does mean it can be a bit of a pain when you're removing stuff, you know. I mean, it's a reasonable desolder station. It's not the worst, it's not the best either, but I know somebody's modified the pump in that, replaced the pump, let's say, and then it works better for pulling stuff from the top side of the board all the way through the bottom, because you've got to be really quick, because solder cools down incredibly quickly, so the quicker it can pull it through the better. So more powerful pump, obviously better. So yeah, I'm going to carry on with that. I'm going to go to the shop first and get the sockets that I need, and then I'll continue, because I don't want to have any more breaks after that. Just continue, get them in, get that board in. So these chips are, that's what that sits in there and replaces those chips. It's not pin for pin, but it's like all of that one, and then just a few on each of those. So I'll show you the kind of socketing arrangement that I put in from those. This is a field programmable grid array, and they're just analog counters, so they provide the signal which then triggers the voices. So they're not actually the voices, but they're the signal for the VCO, kind of like DCO, the clock signal for the DCO. So they're not the actual voice, but they're what triggers the voice. So yeah, well, you can program that to do PWM inside the chip. You know, these don't have PWM. So the previous kit, you had to get a little extra board. I done it, and it was alright. Difficult job, let's say. So you had to connect from these to each voice. You know, so like 2 pins on that, I'd have to connect to 2 pins on there, 2 pins on that one, 2 pins. You know, so you'd have to like work the way across. So you'd have all of this. Like, depending on how you did it, pretty or ugly wiring in there, and there's like, yeah, it was doable, but this is way better. And because it's not part of the voice architecture, it just triggers the voice, so it doesn't matter. These are analog chips, and that's the digital, but it doesn't make any difference, because it's just triggering the digital oscillator anyway, you know, so it can't tell you anything. Got the socket installed now. Went to get it in the shop. Got another couple of ones as well to make the
to make like a sort of so there's like, so there has like an affair of sort of one and then a few short lines, so that's for one of them, and then I'll just have to make the others out of this, but you can just clip them down just to make single rows. I got some nice side cutters to make a better job of it. You basically lose one every time you cut it, so you have to make sure you got enough to make them, and they don't look quite as neat as when they're factory made, but that's okay. So now you got like a 5 and then like a gap of 3 and then 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a row of 9 and I'll have 5, and then I'm just going to push 3 of the pins out from the other side so they'll be blank, and then have 1 in at the end. Rather than have 1 on its own, it's very difficult to get it aligned. And I've got my anti-static on now, so I can show you this. See, like that, you know. See, these ones are just on their own. I'm just going to make a row and then skip a few. But actually remove the pins, so you won't be able to put it in wrong, you know, and put voltage in the wrong place, but it will have more strength than just one on its own. You get it upright. But I'll put them onto this first, then I'll place that, and then I'll solder it, you know, to get them all aligned properly, otherwise it's quite difficult. You're going to lose a little bit of heat like that, but it should be fine. So yeah, this is going to go in the socket, and I'll just show you, like, they're splayed out because it's brand new. They're very much splayed out. So what I do is, this is an anti-static plastic, so put it on that. I'm wearing my anti-static strap as well, and I just gently push it like that, so it bends them all in one go, a bit more towards the middle, and then flip it over and then do it there, that way up, and then so just bend it like that, and then they go, you know, much more aligned like that. They were more splayed out towards 45-degree angle. That's one of the ways to do it anyway. And it's easier when there's more legs to do it like that, you know. The more legs there are, the more you need a surface, rather than, because you can do it with like it is possible to do it with these on a smaller chip, but once it goes above, you know, 7 or 8 on a side, then it starts to become too difficult to get them all at the same, you know. So that's going to go in there now in a minute. Just show the soldering on the other side. Quite pleased with it. There we go. So clean that up, and then yeah, now I'm going to desolder that one where it's not been cleaned up above it, because I've just put extra solder on that one. So yeah, looking nice and clean. It's nice and flat on the board. Just gently turn it over. It's a really big board. So now when I'm pushing this on here, I'm really going to have my hands on both sides. So I don't want to push down just from one side. I'm going to support the board absolutely from the other side, and there'll be no bending at all. I'll just have my fingers on this side and on directly underneath, you know, so there won't be any bending or moving around. And then I'm going to move on to this one. So yeah, I did the same trick with that one. Used a desoldering pump, held it on a bit longer, make sure it really sucked all of the stuff through, you know, so heat it up, hold it still, and then just, instead of just letting it go like, it does little shots and moving down, you just hold it on for a little bit longer. It does pull it all through, but then even so, just with these really sharp side cutters, just cut every single leg on the one side. That looked like there was a couple still maybe caught, but they weren't, you know, but it wouldn't move, it wouldn't coming out, you know, but then just chop all the legs really fine like that. It lifted away straight away, a bit of soft wiggling, the whole thing lifted out on this side, you know, like all these legs just came straight out, and the legs which were still held on that side, which I cut away, all just lifted out as well. There was no heating or no additional heating needed, but it still wasn't gonna just drop out, you know. You would have to like wiggle it and try and get it loose, and you're really gonna damage the traces if you try and wiggle the whole thing, you know, laterally, like the entire thing. It's like, but if you cut one side free like that, cut it as close as you can to the chip, then yeah, just put up like that, and then it becomes a single thing, and you can just waggle it a little bit gently like that. You might see still some pins that are, you know, need a little bit, but then you just hold the iron on the opposite side and just heat them individually. As long as it's only a couple, it's when you've got multiple on both sides that it becomes impossible. But yeah, so that was good, really good. I'm going to solder that one in now, and then that's part of it done, and then we can install the flash module later once I've desoldered these. So I'm going to do the same with these. I think I'll be desoldering it and then clipping one side and flipping them out. So yeah, there's the what's that, the CPU, new CPU in there. It's the new ROM, and then this is like the because everything's on the one board. I can't remember which one. That's the CPU and the synth ROM, and then you've got like the voice ROM over here, I believe. Anyway, and this is where like the patch storage happens, because you've got this is the RAM, the SRAM, which is battery backed up by this. So this is like, you know, governing the assignment of the patches to the voices, I believe. Anyway, I think that's how it goes. So here's my little, this is what I've made for, going to attach that in. You can see this lines up with that, and you know, just pops those out, which is easier said than done, but it gives it a bit more strength and kind of stability, and you know, you get a single pin like that, and it's just angle central. They're all going to be like everywhere, maybe there's only 3 of them. So this is gonna, I'm gonna attach those to that board, and then I'm gonna solder the entire thing in place, you know, in one, you know, because otherwise, yeah, just intolerance is central, you know, you're just not going to be poking everywhere, you know, and anything's going to be really difficult. Any slight deviation from absolutely flush make it almost impossible to line up. So line them up first, and then just solder the whole thing down later, you know. It won't solder this to the inside of there, it'll just solder this part to the board, and it might have a little bit more heat sinking because of this attached to it, but for me that's less stressful to the board and myself than trying to get it to line up with those things after the fact. I mean, you've basically got a very slim chance, it even says that in the guide as well, and that soldering directly to the board is preferable, but, or he would have found that preferable. However, if you need to get it off again for whatever reason, that is a huge pain in the hoop. So I think better put those on first, then they're all lined up exactly flat, exactly as they need to be, and then solder them in place. So once I've desoldered these, then that's going to be next. In now, it's yet to be soldered, but I've got the legs on the underneath. The counter chips came out perfectly. They just hoovered up all the solder, and they all just popped right out. So I think it's like it is the sort of the longer the chip gets, the more difficult it is. So that one, the CPU is like 40 pins. So yeah, and then the other one is, I think it's just 2 pins more, 4 pins more. But even so, it's the one with the red dot on it. That's 28 pin, and these are 24. Like the RAM next to that one, RAM is that's 24 as well. So yeah, they're easier when there's less. Sorry, I'm in the way of the light all the time. There we go. Anyway, yeah, there we go. It's gonna be soldered in that now. There's only, you know, there's not a full complement of pins like with all of those. So it's cool. It's just you know, one full set there, and then like just a handful on the rest of the board. So that's kind of nice. It was yeah, it was easy with the desoldering. It just went. No, I don't know if you've used one of these, but it's got a filter in the back here, and you have to clean this out, and it does get clogged from time to time going into the nozzle, and then you have to shove a little, this thing, it's like a thin tool which has a bend here, so it stops you from melting that thing. You have to ram that up the nozzle bit, and then it'll come and blocks it, but sometimes it gets so blocked that you have to have to take this out, and then this thing's blocked down there, and then you have to put the soldering iron on and hold the soldering iron onto the back of it whilst pushing the thing through, and it'll let the solder out then, because it's just all got gobbed up and it won't sort of. It's a bit of a faff sometimes, but sometimes you just get a good run. I've not had to unblock it at all during all of this desoldering, so I've done that and all of those, and I've not had to unblock it once, so that's amazing. Anyway, what really made a difference was there's also another filter in here, right? So I'd forgotten to change that. In fact, I don't think I've ever changed that. So anyway, I changed that one, and it made a huge difference. So if you've got one of these and it's sort of giving you a bit static and it's not really picking up that well, look in there's another filter, change it, and the suction's loads better. Yeah, so that's the last thing to solder now, and then I'll just swap that out because that's on a socket happily, and then yeah, it'd be good to go. Oh, I'm gonna do a couple of little more bits on this board once this is in and my parts from mouse are in. I'm going to replace the battery later, but I want to dump the contents of the RAM first, because that will go if I do the battery before I've dumped them. So, and I'll just I'm going to give these another touch of solder, and I might try thinking if you desolder these from the board, put them in a bracket, put the little nut on already, and then solder them to the board, then you could do it that way. So I might think about trying that. Okay, so this one, yeah, installed now. It's ever so slightly higher at this end, which is mildly annoying, but it's still got a good connection overall. I've beeped it out with a good old multimeter, and it's fine. It's, I'd say they're like half a mil higher in here, maybe even less, but you can't even really see it. You can see it a tiny bit maybe. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's always going to be tricky getting something that's like so custom into the place of 4 chips. So I'm really happy with how it come out. If I'd have just put a little bit of pressure on though while I was doing it, it would have come out absolutely flat. But it's not creating any problems. It's in there good. It's all connected. So yeah, that was it. This one, the ROM with the red one, and behind it, so you've got a new ROM, operating system, new CPU to handle the code quicker, a new flash module for the memory storage and for the patches. I think there's some patches on there, and it's got different modes and stuff like that, but I guess that's on the operating system. So it's got chord mode, it's got Arpeggiator, and now this has got the PWM mod, which is just amazing. And yeah, then that's pretty much it. Going to come back and then change this battery later, that's all. I know I'm going to try pretty hard to get a new strain relief thing for these jacks, which probably means desoldering them first and then what do we call it, putting nuts on them to make them hang on to the thing, and then getting those in exactly the right position, and then you can fit them onto the board, and then you can screw that into the case. I'll have to drill 2 holes into the case. So maybe before I do that I might buy these new jacks. You can buy these new, so possibly a good idea to buy them new. I don't think they're in really bad condition, but if I'm going to mess about to that degree I may as well do that with new ones, you know. But yeah, I'll see anyway. I'll just do with those. It's not that difficult to desolder jacks, you know. It's pretty easy. Could have to replace them at some point anyway, because they get damaged. The internals of them get damaged, and the housing gets damaged, and the PCB gets, well, it doesn't get damaged, but the traces get cracked and the solder joints go rough because there's no strain relief. So every time you put a cable in and out, literally every single time, then it's stressing the part and it's stressing the joints. So I'm going to do that. So yeah, there we go. That's the little the flash memory, you know. So you can update that over MIDI as well, or perhaps it's, I'm never sure which one. Yeah, so we got that one installed in the end. It's a tiny bit higher in one place, but it's fine. The connections are good. It's always going to be a little bit tricky doing something like that over like a custom board over like 4 chips, but it's great. I've beeped out all the connections, so the pins on there are accessing the pins underneath, so it's good, it's in there good and solid. So then put the flash module in. That's the one you can update it via MIDI, I guess it's that one anyway. So this is the ROM, 6.0 ROM. I'm not sure which one you can update, which one gets the updates or whatever, but this is the one where you can store the memory on, so it's got a lot of banks of memory storage on there, which is cool. So now, yeah, because of the updated OS, now I can dump all the contents of the cartridge that I have and all the contents of the internal memory straight to a MIDI dump in one go, like a whole bank. So that's brilliant. You couldn't do that earlier on this synth, you had to just do one sound at a time. Fuck that. So yeah, yeah, great. I'm going to try and do something with those jacks at some point. Replace this battery and replace these components, well, these capacitors, because they're very close to these. I'm going to fit some little heat sinks onto the back of these just to spread the heat instead of letting it go into these caps. And I'll probably move, see that one's right behind it, I'll probably put that one on some fly leads and glue it down to the board, just so it's not right next to that. It's still the idea. I mean, even if it lay down, it's better, you know, because it's not right next to it, but I'll just move it out of the way, then you can get a heat sink in there as well. So yeah, there's like a little handful of caps there. It says it's like a little mini part of the power supply, that, so that was running hot and getting more stress than, you know, these are for like the signals and stuff. They're generally okay. If these started to go bad, then it's just kind of like you just pretty much replace all of them, but you don't really need to unless they start weird sounding with the voices and stuff like that. Then it's likely to be one of those, but I'm not going to do that until I need to. Like, no way. Like. And even then, if it's just one, maybe, but if it's one or more than one, then you just sort of do them all, really, because it's just too much of a faff to keep getting it out and doing it one by one, you know. Anyway, it's good. I'm going to plug it back in and give it a test. All the stuff's going well with the install of all the mods and stuff. We've got the patches copied now. There was something with the cartridge. It wasn't seeing. It was seeing it as like 4 banks, even though there was just 1 bank. So when you tried to copy it onto the operating system, it could onto the internal, it couldn't do it because presumably there was some kind of bank conflict, because it thought there was 4 but there's only 1, and it was weird. I think that's something in the OS itself, but anyway, I just dumped the cartridge contents to a MIDI dump and then dumped them back into the internal. So now the cartridge is in my Arpeggiator 2 instead, because this has got loads of internal storage now, it doesn't need a cartridge. Although it does look really good with the cartridge sticking out of there. I know it's just an aesthetic thing, but it just gives it that little, you know, off-centeredness that just looks fucking great, you know. So that's a bit of a shame, really, because I do like aesthetic things like that, but it's not really worth you know, keeping it just for the looks when the other one could really do with some more storage, you know. So anyway, this thing is a force sensitive resistor. It's actually, I ordered one of these from China, but it's not for aftertouch purposes, and this is an actual aftertouch strip from a more modern keyboard which my friend gave me, and it's a controller keyboard, like but I don't really enjoy using a controller keyboard. I'd rather use the instrument that I want to play on, you know. So I took it out of that one, and you know, it'll go in this one, you know, and I don't know, maybe give the thing away for spares, the controller keyboard, because yeah, I'm not too bothered about having the rotaries. Not really. There's a few of them, but you know, because if I want aftertouch, I can use this keyboard and send aftertouch from here, or I can use my Arpeggiator and send aftertouch from there, you know. I just prefer using the older stuff. The control keyboard, it just kind of leaves me flat, really, because it just doesn't do anything, you know. Anyway, I'm going to take the keyboard apart again
to install this, but that's okay because I've got a little scuff on this key here and I can feel it when I'm playing. So I want to move that to, or one of them is anyway. I want to move that right to the end, because you play less up there, you're playing in the middle, really. So yeah, that's okay. It's not that bad to put it back together. It's a bit of a pain, but I knew that I was going to have to do it again anyway, and I probably have to do it a third time because I might retrobrite these and make them a bit whiter, because I would enjoy that. What's the thing? Yeah, it would be good to do it at once, but it's not sunny enough yet, you know. I'll put that in and test it out and then see, you know, because I'll have to do some tests to get the height straightened up and stuff like this. So I've also got a lot more work to do on this with the buttons and the power supply, so I'll be doing that as well at the same time. Because I know all of the mods are working now, and it's cool. The power supplies and the buttons are like, yeah, it's fairly simple, you know, it's nothing too technical, pretty easy to undertake. This is more tricky, but I want to get it in there and just test it out, you know, just hear it with some working aftertouch, because yeah, it's awesome with aftertouch, you know, and it just sounds amazing with these new PWM features. And yeah, the editing is a lot easier on the new version, because when you're in here you've got to edit and you say like 1, 1, and then that's a parameter value. There's a little map down there telling you which one's which, and it's just added to the list, you know, so I could maybe stick something on there. But anyway, in the original OS, these don't, even though they're arrow keys, they don't move up and down through the values of the thing, so you can go like oscillator 1, oscillator 2, oscillator, you know, the envelope values of filter. In the other one, you have to go like 1, 1, 2, 1, or 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4 to go up the things. You can't go just step through them all. So editing is fucking way quicker, even though I've not got an editor, you know, programmer. It's just way quicker because you can scoot up and down. And then if you're like, okay, I want to go to 6 and do the envelope, then you just go 6, 1, and then you can go around in between it like that. I just couldn't believe it when it wasn't like that in the original. This is just for a patch chain. But yeah, the chord mode and the arpeggio, which are now in here, are just amazing as well, you know, nice touch. And yeah, you can do bulk dump of MIDI of the banks and stuff like this, so yeah, it's way better. It's way better. Yeah, so it's great. So I'm going to try and install this. Well, I am going to install this. It's going to take a little bit to get in there again under the keys, but it's okay. I've just got them in and the 3 screws on the back at the moment, because I knew I would take it out again. So pretty much got to take all of the keys off to get it in there, and because you need to have something on top of this, you see, like a sort of feltish, so I kept the original bits, you know, to squash it. And yeah, I would have liked to put the thing back in that other controller keyboard, but it came off in pieces. There's like the felt strip came off in pieces, and yeah, kind of went in the bin then. But anyway, yeah, so that's the next one. So yeah, I mean, the thing is, you can get these force sensitive resistors. They're not expensive, but getting one that's designed for the 4 sort of aftertouch in particular is like, I've never seen any for sale. This is for the other ones for a different purpose. It may be good, but this is definitely going to be really good for it, you know. So if you can pick up for one a big controller keyboard that's maybe damaged or something that has aftertouch, you know, like an Arturia or a Native Instruments, you know, something, they were, you know, they're expensive when they come out, but you know, 10 years, 15 years old model, you know, nobody wants those anymore, you know. It's kind of like, you could probably get one for like 50 quid, you know, and that's worth it to have a nice aftertouch strip that you know is going to work. You just hook it up to the cable, it'll go in. I mean, you can tweak values on the other side of the board. There's a whole circuit that digitises the response of this resistor, or the original one. So you can tweak the values if you really need to, but this would be pretty sensitive, like, and you know, look, it's just the right length. Amazing. The other one was like a little bit too short, you know, so, but yeah, this is great. So anyway, I'll get that installed. This is my
test bed for the aftertouch strip. Here's the aftertouch strip itself, which is recovered from a controller keyboard, which, you know, I'd rather it working in this than a controller keyboard. So I've decided to take it. Somebody gave me the controller keyboard. I may have explained this already. So I've got some double-sided carpet tape here. I've kept like this tiny metal strip, a thin metal strip, to just give it a little bit more depth, a very small amount. I've tested it for depth, and I tested it with another piece of slightly thicker double-sided tape, you know, like the foamy kind, but it was too high, and then like leading to no triggering on a soft hit, which you can't have. So I'm going to peel this back. I'm going to stick the force sensitive resistor to it, and then I'm going to put, this is the original aftertouch sort of cover strip, which gives a nice height with the keys and it stops you from pressing that. If you just go straight onto this, you just get aftertouch immediately, you know. So yeah, just gonna, then there's a little bit over either side for this to stick down. It's good and strong tape though, so it should be fine for that. So yeah, it goes the whole length, and you can see this is nice and I've extended the rust spots off and give it a light oil. It's looking much better. So yeah, then as I said, this is part of the original. It's the wrong way up now. It's going to go the way up. So this, you can't see him now. He presses into that, you know, the little laddery type thing looking there. So that's where the force is. So, yeah, should be really cool. It's just the right length of these keys as well, you know. Well, it's like it's a bit overlong, but that's so that it can go into where it's meant to in the other keyboard, and I'm just going to solder it onto the original wires there. I may then adjust the gain. You can adjust the gain on the back of this kind of circuit board here. Here's the aftertouch. So basically this is the final gain, or you know, the bit that you can control. So with it up high, it's pretty responsive, but I can put a variable resistor into that circuit and just see if I can just tweak it so we get a bit more how I like it, you know. It's very responsive though, and it's good, it sounds good. So that's cool, and a little test on it, and yeah, just this is what I'm doing, you know. This is how to replace it. You can get these, if you can't find one from a keyboard, they do have 80cm ones on eBay, which is just not quite long enough, but it doesn't matter if you don't have it on the absolute top one key. It's only going to be missing one key, you know. So better to have something that actually works. I'd have to touch, you know. I mean, it's better to have one obviously that fits and that's designed for aftertouch like this one, but if you can't find one, then they do sell them. They're only $10. So, you know, you can fit it. It is a bit of a pain to take all the keys off, but once you've done it a couple of times, it goes a lot quicker. It does. And it's, you know, yeah, it's just kind of what you have to do. So, yeah, I'm going to start sticking this down now, and then, yeah, I'll perhaps adjust the gain later, but I have to, as I said, I've tested it, and I've put a key on, and, you know, you test it with the pressure. But then, you know, yeah, I can feel it and hear it working. I'm getting a good trigger and I'm getting a reasonable response from the aftertouch. So it's like, okay, good to install, and then you can always fine tune it in the gain of the circuit which digitizes it. So yeah, I'm gonna start peeling back this. So I've put the same here. This is where the keys go in, and they have a little notch that sits in, so when you get the keyboard and take it apart originally, it's got some tape that they put on there at the factory, and it's all just fucked at this stage, and there's one on the underneath as well. So I'll just replace that. I'll just leave the backing on because it's just so that it doesn't be biting with the plastic notch onto the metal itself. It's just no good for it, so it gives it a little cushion. So it's got one up and one down, and yeah, it works well. So yeah, carpet tape, can recommend it. This is the same stuff. So it's not thick. It's very thin, like maybe you know, less than a millimetre, maybe a millimetre. Once you take this off, it's even a bit thinner. So yeah, I'm going to stick that on now. Okay, you get in there. You can see now that's the resistor. I've put another layer of tape over. You can see how thin the tape is because you can actually see through it. If you can see here, you can still see that ladder pattern, which is good because I don't want it to be too thick. But the thing is, they were pretty stingy with this original component. It's only exactly long enough to fit between the keys. So if they'd have just made it like even 4mm longer on one end, you'd have 2 more mil to get it right, you know, under the keys. But yeah, it's really tricky to get it exactly in the right position. And obviously because that tape's super sticky now, it's like I've measured it off on both ends and then drawn on it with a pen. I've done my tests already, so I know like where it's got to be to sound, you know, good and feel good, you know. So yeah, it wasn't enough. It had this was down with a piece of tape, but it wasn't enough to stick that as well. So yeah, this tape's so thin that it won't make the difference. You know, it might, but I'd be unlucky if it did, because it's pretty much the depth that I had it, plus whatever that is like. It's thin tape, as you can see through it, so it's kind of, it can't be very thick if you can see through it, Doc. Yeah, I mean, it's not sellotape, is it? It's kind of a gaffer tapey style tape, but thinner, a carpet, you know, so it's really, really sticky. So yeah, I'm going to stick that down now, and then it's looking nice, isn't it? Yeah, reposition that a little bit closer to the edge, just so then you got more like leverage force then, like a little bit more, you know. But it's not, you know, it's not sticking out or anything. It's not over the edge with the metal, you know. You can see there's not much of a border on this thing. You can see the clear border there actually. In the shadow section, look, you can see there's like a mil either side of that pressure thing. Yep, I'm going to stick that bit down now. This is like the cushion that the keys wedge onto and press against. It's not a very good design. I mean, there's no, like, it's just that hollow key, so both sides of that press against it, you know. There's not even like a, you know, a solid round bit there that kind of press down. I guess maybe that it's too much force in one place, but you know, these, so when you get the end one, that's why you have to have them both right, because it sort of waggles a little bit otherwise if one side's on it and the other side's not. So then it's like, well, make that a little bit longer then, and then they can all fit on really easily. Anyway, they didn't do a good job with the aftertouch, and they knew it. This one was in the serial numbers where it was like serial numbers affected previous to this, you know, and we changed the design after this. So they weren't ever any good, really. They tried though, you know, and it was a great idea. It is a really cool thing. It's kind of a well, not a standard, but it is more of a standard now on keyboards, you know. I don't really know whether any other keyboards had it, and it's CS8, it's got like polyphonic aftertouch, and that's incredible, but that's a whole different arrangement, you know. Even channel aftertouch is better than none though, you know. Right. That's stuck down now, so I'm going to have a little test in a minute again to see it's all still good. This is actually okay. It was it is long enough. You know, when you push it down and stretch it out, then it takes to its full length, you know. But when you've just got it laid flat, it's not. If you know what I mean, it sort of shrinks a little. And it's like tiny little rooks in it and stuff, so once you've got it absolutely all the way flat, it is actually as long as you need it to be, just maybe in a spaz. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't too upset about it. I just positioned it in the right place, but then it was good. yeah, got the extra space. So yeah, I'm going to test it again now, just against the, just against the, you know, to see whether it still works. There's some screws in the panel there, holding the key springs there, so that shuts quite nicely against the case, so that I can put my headphones in. See, just against the metal case. All good under there. It's not touching any circuit boards. We don't actually need those screws now. It's just sat on top of there. So, because the power cable, I don't mind if that bends up. I'm going to replace it anyway. But my headphones, I don't want it. So I'm going to plug that in now. Give it another test. See whether it's still working good. Mildly concerning because I tried it with the thicker tape, which I've now put back, but yeah, because I've got like one more layer in now, but it's so thin that you can see through it, so it isn't really much to worry about, but even so, it's not stuck in there now. Got that soldered on to the end now. I tested it out and it's good, it does work. I tested it with a resistor in line with that and also across it, and it didn't really work as well. I mean, you could try with different values of resistors, but the thing is, as I may have mentioned a few times before, you can change the gain over here in this digitizing circuit, and that's the best thing to do now because it's a good height, it's nice, you know, you can squeeze it down there with the thing. There is pressure available there, you know, it's high enough, and maybe it's like a little bit too thick for this, but it's kind of, you have to use the same thing for the right height, and you know, so it's all like a bit of an experiment really, you know. So anyway, now what you can do is to change the gain in the setting that digitizes the value of this, so just increase it, so it'll just increase the sensitivity of it. So, you know, yeah, there's a bit of both really. You need to get it the right here, and that you can press it, and that it's doing something, and there is some resistance to work with and to amplify. And as I said, this is a new strip, so I kind of wanted to fuck around with the gain as well of the circuit. So I'm kind of pleased that it wasn't exactly the right sensitivity that I wanted. Somebody's done it's not really a tutorial, but he's done it, and he shows you what resistors it is and where it is in the circuit and stuff. So yeah, put a little variable resistor on there and perhaps change two other values, or maybe even just a variable will be fine, because there is quite a lot of stuff going on. It's not nothing that I'm trying to work up from, or, you know, barely nothing. It's reasonably there. I just would like it to be a little bit more responsive, a little bit more sensitive to the presses, you know, so you can press it a little bit, you know, more nuanced kind of thing. So yeah, I'm going to just tape this down with some silver gaffer tape, because I want to be able to get it off again in the future if you have to get the keyboard out. This is attached with a socket, a plug and a connector, you know, so it's fine to tape that down, but I don't want to glue it down in case you have to get the keyboard out. See? It would be nice to have a connector on that really, rather than that, but yeah, it's okay. Then you'll just have a fairly long trailing wire if you have to work on the keyboard, but yeah, that's just how it is. So yeah, just gonna I'll take that down and then get that reattached to its ground part on there. It doesn't really make much difference. I think it's just to kind of shield what's going on from here with this. I didn't really change it though when I disconnected it, because I didn't have enough crocodile clips. So I disconnected it and it didn't do anything. So didn't change it. So, but it's good to have it connected, but it's not essential for it to operate. So. Yeah, it looks like it's damaged there, but it's just bits of glue that I found to hard to get off from the original installation that it was in. So yeah, that just goes under there. He comes down and he pushes that onto it. Yeah, you just have to push it like a little bit, you know, too hard, but you can't have that higher because then you can't get a key press, you know, it has to be where it is, and then you have to change the sensitivity then because you don't want to be pushing from higher up. So yeah, I guess they were learning when they were doing aftertouch on these things, you know, because this is a new thing. You'd think it would be like, you know, sensitive enough, but it's yeah, other stuff going on. And then it'll be this guy's turn next. Whilst it's using less power already because of these mods, particularly that one. Yeah, it's better, but still I'm kind of keen to get this stuff out and get some new stuff in. Everything going to be out on there. All of the components can be changed because there's only a handful of other ones, and the resistors do change over time apparently. I mean, they'll still work, but you'll get closer readings because there's no adjustments on this. There's no trim pots to change the value of a voltage. It's just what there is. So this can be a fiend and break when you don't know that it's broken, and then these are running higher than they should be because he's not regulating anymore, so it's taken direct off of the bridge rectifier at 18 instead of 15. So yeah, far from ideal. I've got a new one of those coming, but yeah, it would be nice to get a modern replacement for that instead of a new old stock, but still better to have one that's been sat than in use for so long. I'm surprised that these hasn't gone, you know, because it's obviously had a bit of use, this machine, you know. Some of the buttons are a bit non-responsive, not all of them, but this one runs so fucking hot, like, let's scorch that. So yeah, anyway, yeah, that'll be in a few days. I'm going to do that. I've got some other little heat sinks to attach onto here to give it a bit more mass. And yeah, it should be fun doing that bit. Switchboard under there, of course. That'll take a little while. But these are single-sided board, this one, so it's really easy to desolder. It's really easy, that. I mean, you can mess things up more easily because you've only got one side to work out. If the trace comes off, then you know you can repair them though pretty easily if you need to. Well, hey, big order. Got my big order of parts in with the switches. There's a few items in there for Juno 106. Finalising just some new fuses really for the power supply. And the power socket, because I did put a power socket on, but it's not a great fit. It's not one with the little side eyelets that you screw into, so I'm not happy with that. I'm going to replace that one again. So that's for a different one. So all of these are pretty much for the power supply and the switches of the JX-8P. So as I probably mentioned, entire rebuild of the power supply, all of the components except for the filter. The incoming filter, I think that's still okay. At least, pretty sure that that's still okay. It just filters the incoming line signal. It's not. I don't think the components are subject to as much stress as these in the actual power supply. So because I've chosen high tolerance resistors. So some of the original design, it calls for 1%, most of them are 5%, and it calls for a couple of 1%. So I've done them all 1%, because they're all cheap. The 1% is cheap now. It's 0.1% is previously what it was for a 1%. Actually it's not, it's even yet cheaper, you know, so where it called for 1%, I've got 0.1%, and where it called for 5%, I've got 1%, so you should get some pretty tight tolerances on the power supply. You should have a really close you know, closely regulated supply, because there's no trim pots to adjust it, so it should be much more bang on with these more exact components. So yeah, I'm looking forward to replacing all of that. And yeah, because it's a little bit of an iffy design. So upping the power capacity of a few of the components and mounting them on the heatsink, and adding more thermal mass to the heatsink as well. So alright, the first thing I'm going to do is, well, because I'm going to be doing so much work on it, I want to just remove this whole thing. There's not that many wires that are soldered down as these, and that's it really. And this one, these are plugs, so that comes away, and these are screwed down to the board because I'm going to have to drill some holes in this to mount at least one of these new. This one doesn't get so hot, but maybe I'm going to mount them both on there, or maybe just one. I've got some other heat sinks to experiment with, but I'm definitely going to be fixing something to there permanently. So this is all going to come off. It's just a lot easier to work on if I take the whole thing off. So I'll do that, because the alternative is to, you can unplug those and just kind of flip it over and, you know, just a few little pieces. And it's only 6 if you're just going to do that, and like 8 if you're going to do those. But yeah, so what I'm going to do is, there's 2 of these and I think they're both the same, but I'll just mark that one. And then mark it next to it, so I know that that one go back on there. Just go a bit closer. It's in the shadow of that, but anyway, I marked it next to the connector it's going to go on, and then I'll mark that one. I'll just mark it there underneath where it says orange, so then I'll know that that one's going to go back on there, and which red one's going to go back on. No, you really can't see that's in deep shadow, but I've just marked it next to the, that one. Obviously there's only one, these come off, so that will do. These are marked on the package, if you can see that. I got plus minus and then a squiggle for the AC, but they're also marked on the silk screen, and I've double checked that the silk screen matches the component, because sometimes they do get the silk screen incorrect and it doesn't match the component, and if it's working then you should always put it in the way that the component is rather than the silk screen if the device is working, because obviously the silk screen is incorrect because it works with it in the orientation of the device, you know, because sometimes you'll see it with the capacitors as well, like the white leg will be facing this white dot here, but sometimes it won't, it'll be the other way around. And yeah, if it's well, if it's audio, it can kind of go either way with that really. At least I think it can. It only goes through it one way, doesn't it? But it won't cause an explosion like it can do on a power supply, let's say. Like if you put that in backwards, it will explode, and you don't want to be near something that kind of size when it explodes. So just look at the capacitors. Yeah. Most the big ones anyway. So I think 700, these are the replacements for that. Let's have a look at the size difference. Height wise, this isn't plugged in, by the way, there's nothing in that socket. So. Height wise, not too, only a little bit of difference there. I've got a good, almost a centimetre, maybe a centimetre, but diameter wise, quite a significant difference there, right? I mean, still fit in there, but yeah, they're a lot smaller 40 years later. Although, you know, it's not tiny, but it does fit it totally inside that circle diameter there. It's like completely inside that by a few mil all over. So that's the bigger one, and that one. These two are the same. Oh, I went for 105 degrees rather than, I think these are 85. Yeah, 85. So always choose 105, they'll last longer. Especially you got that, it's next to this boiling hot and it's still only 85, you know. And the tolerance is pretty good on these as well, it doesn't say that on the package. But yeah, they're a good, like, what do you call it, high tolerance, you know, so they're a good pick. What brand did I get? Panasonic, I think, yeah. Panasonic, and I got it from Marsa as well, so you can trust that they are actually Panasonics. Although it doesn't say anywhere on the thing, does it? Could be, could be anything. Like, maybe that's their code. Does not match anything on there. 3N02SA. No, it doesn't match any of the information, does it? But it'll be like a batch code for the manufacturing, so you can trace it back to them if something did go wrong. You can. That's the thing about these bigger suppliers. They can trace the parts back to the source. You know, that's why people use them. You know, if you're a company, you've got to use a company like this. If you're serious about it, anyway, because they can go back and trace failures and stuff like that. You know, and they can't sell fakes because like they're getting in big trouble for it. You know, they've got to be able to trace it back to the manufacturer. So. And at least I've worked in like network reselling before, and it's like they have, even the reselling stuff, they have like a department that deals with counterfeit and suspected counterfeit goods, because you know, even if they don't know that they're counterfeit if they are caught with them. You know, it's a big thing for them. So I want to make sure that they're not. Excuse me. So yeah, with something like that, going in a power supply, you want it to last as long as possible, and you want it to be an actual and not a counterfeit. I mean, you can see how that would be pretty easy to counterfeit, right? It doesn't even have a logo on it. Mind you, they're good at doing the logos as well. So anyway, I think is this one, the biggest one. I'm going to fit a bleed resistor underneath, because this is much more modern electronics, and the flash module as well, and it can get into a funny condition where this doesn't power down, and so it's still sort of trickle powering the devices, the low power devices, so essentially they're still on. So when you turn them back on again, they can get strange conditions, because they didn't fully turn off before they've come on again. So they got like, you know, stuff like half garbled stuff in the memory maybe, or if you've got an OLED screen, it can be like dripping characters and stuff like that, and there's weirdness. So it's best to fit. You just fit across both terminals underneath like a 1%, I think 1k resistor. So then when it's on, it's not doing anything. It's just across the poles, and when it's off, it just gently dissipates the power between the two poles. Like if you were to discharge it with a screwdriver, you know, when you want to work on it, you just touch to both ends together and it'll spark if it's not discharged. But obviously you don't want to do that to discharge it well. It's still connected to everything, so that will I don't think it causes a problem. It just discharges into the screwdriver, but even so, you know, you just want it to discharge slowly over time. So it'll do that across the resistor. So yeah, if you've kind of upgraded one of these, it's a good idea. Although I do think the bit that it affects the most is the OLED screens. But yeah, all modern electronics kind of needs it. It needs to fully power off before it's powered on again, and this stuff just doesn't give it a chance to do that because it's holding a charge for so long. I've marked those, now I can desol those. Probably not too bad to have a refreshing off or some new solder on those anyway, you know, it'd be alright, but because I've got to take it off anyway, they're going to have some fresh stuff, so I'll unscrew these first. I will keep those not for use in a replacement or a new device or something, but I'll do it to just in case I need to quickly get something back into service and going again. But or to test out, like, is that going to fix the problem? You know, but I wouldn't use it for something new. So you've got two plus and minus transistors, PNP, NPN, or either or, you got them both for the plus and minus 15 power transistors, and that's the voltage regulator. So yeah, I'll keep those in the spares, but they won't go into anything new. They'll just be like, oh, I need a 5-volt regulator, I'll just use that. Is that the problem? Just double check that is going to fix it, and then you're like, yeah, then get a new one, you know. So yeah, get the fuse in first, I think, actually. Why not, eh? I mean, the fuses don't go until they go, but even so, it's like, they're like, what, £1 or something? May as well replace it, you know. I did have a funny thing in the Juno 106 power supply where they were sort of conducting, but they were blown. So when it was off, they weren't conducting, but when you turn the power on, you got AC on the other side of them, so it was flowing through them. And it beep tested when it was on, but when it was off, it didn't. So they weren't conducting enough AC, but they were still conducting some, and they could see, like with that one, you can see it's still whole, and so are they. So yeah, you know, you can get some weird failure modes with a fuse, so yeah, just replace it. This I'm going to leave the choke and two capacitors, which are just filtering the line supply. But yeah, I mean, I did look at a new choke, but I think it's good to keep these in, and I don't think that there's any point in replacing these. It's just an extra step of filtering, I think. It's not that critical, so those values will be critical of these. So anyway, I decided to leave that one, but yep. Okay, on we go. Oh yeah, that one's all over next. Fit the power supply, power inlets, and get some heat shrink on, because I recommended someone else do this. He fixed up an old Roland on YouTube. I said it's a good idea to shield these with heat shrink, you know. He kind of got a bit defensive about it, actually, saying that there's absolutely no point because nothing can brush against it accidentally. It's like, yeah, nothing can in here either, but if you look at high-end PSU design, there's no way that they leave those open. They'll be definitely covered in heat shrink, and that's the regulations these days, is that it needs to be covered whether it's inside or not. And it is a good idea to cover them, you know, because yeah, it's covered from everything inside, but what's the harm in covering them with heat shrink, you know? There isn't any. And I've got a shock off that whilst I was working on a power supply, because I'd not heat shrunk it, so once you've done that, you definitely will. But yeah, so I put a new one in and I didn't do it, and then I was looking at the fit, and I'd forgotten it was still plugged in, and then I touched it and I'm like, fuck, got a shock. So, you know, it would have helped myself out if I'd have heat shrunk them, even though it won't get, you know, you can't brush it accidentally, but you can if you're working on it. So it is still a good idea to cover them, you know, even if you're not going to touch it again, you know, see it again. Yeah, these are still open, of course, but, you know, I could heat shrink those as well, at least, you know, the top ends of it. And, do you know, I think I might. I mean, you got AC out there as well, but, you know, I'm going to replace this cable as well, so I probably will even do that end, but perhaps not this end. Because then, well, you can still check it on those points though, can't you? Maybe, we'll see, maybe this end. This is going directly to the transformer. These will have some more cable ties and stuff as well, but yeah, definitely recommended to heat shrink those. It really is. If you open up like any kind of a device now and it's got one of those and it's a professionally done device, they'll be definitely covered in heat shrink. First thing is a new fuse. There's a new one next to the old one. Now that is unplugged. See the plug there next to my foot. Yeah, still plugged in there, but just pop one out of these specially designed tool. Oh yeah, I might keep that for spares just to see if something's working, but I probably wouldn't leave it in anything for any great length of time, but you know, if you had to just check whether it is. Turn the fuse. I mean, generally they'll only blow a fuse for a reason, you know, it won't just be like, that's the fault, you know. So yeah, but sometimes, you know, you might need to blow multiple fuses before you can find the error, but hopefully not. Anyway, it's got a brand new one now, so, you know, 40 years, all of these components. Okay, so I've taken these screws out and these clips out, and the next thing is those little clamps that clamp them down, because they have to be isolated from the heat sink in these, because they're a short circuit otherwise. I think there's little heat pads behind them, so we use those again. But look at that one. More 80s you die. So yeah, these will come out and be just as spares, but they're definitely not going to be used in any kind of long-term application again. Just maybe to get something going again and see if that's a problem, you know, should I need to. So anyway, I'll just sort of wiggle that around and pull it out now, I guess. So this is my idea with the... I'm going to mount one of these new packages, which are here, significantly larger. I don't want to handle them without my strap, VST strap. Trying to avoid saying it in the manner which sounds sexually weird. Yeah, it's down there, but I just don't need to handle it just yet. So, but yeah, those anyway are the replacements for these two. But this one doesn't run very hot, so my idea is I'll run that one with this little heatsink on the top of it for its own personal one, even though it doesn't get very hot. This one will still get pretty hot, so he's going to be on here. I'm also going to fix this to there for some more thermal mass, because it gets pretty warm anyway from these, so that'll help out with this extra warmth that's going to be coming from this one. So these are just pulled off something else, dead power supplies or something else. So just screw that to it with a bit of heat sink compound on the back. I've got a couple of different sorts. And they're quite large, so probably use a cheap kind on that one, to be honest. It's just adding thermal mass to this, it's not critical. But for the other one I'll use the expensive paste that says good for longer, you know. This is fine with the white gooey stuff, you know, the standard. It'll just be screwed on there. I've got some screws, it's pretty much self-threading this. If you drill a hole just a bit beyond the, just a bit smaller than the screw, I've got them down there, you know, just that standard type of, you know, gold screw that you find in the electronic stuff, really. And that is enough to thread the thing, and it'll stay on there. If it's a bit wiggly, I'll bolt it on. I know how to make things secure so they don't fall off later. It's kind of important. So yeah, I was looking at some other little heat sinks for those, but I think yeah, well, got some other ones as well. We'll see. I think probably that one, to be honest, but it's not getting that hot. Maybe that one and that one for really quite a lot of thermal mass on there, and then the smaller one on this one, you know, because it doesn't get that warm. And we'll see. Could I kind of get that? I mean, even as it is now, this doesn't get very warm, you know. So once it's got a higher power one on there, it really won't be seeing much heat. And it's that one that gets really hot for the 5-volt line, you know. So it's pulling much more power for that. So I've got some smaller ones, so I'll have a look. I figured actually I don't really need to desolder those. I can actually solder with it here. I'll cover the keys up when I'm going to do the soldering, and yeah, it'll be fine like that. There won't be too much moving around, but yeah, as I said, I'll cover this with some cardboard or paper working it like this. But as you can see, I'll hold it against the light. Can you see? I've cleaned the board here, like give it a clean with some alcohol so it won't stink quite as badly. Just look at all that residue of flux on there, and where I've not cleaned it on that half. It's all yellow and golden, and this half is mostly clean, but if you start desoldering that with it uncleaned, it just absolutely stinks. And it's even, I had a mask on, a full face respirator, and I was doing some work on one like this before, and it fucking reeks, man. So yeah, I advise you to see how much of a difference it is. Just give it a wipe with a cotton bud Q-tip, some alcohol, and just clean it before you desolder it, because that will, you don't want to breathe that shit in. Even if you got a mask, you could still smell it through the mask. Look at the difference, like all along there. So yeah, that was the first job. There, huge improvement. It's still not entirely clean, but it's way better. You can see how that, this is the regulator that gets really hot. See that? The difference. Scorching the traces. So yeah. Right, so this is the heatsink I'm going to use. I'm going to use the other one directly attached to the second regulator. But it doesn't get very hot, but still, I'm just going to give it one. This, you got to watch out for these screw holes anyway, because you've got to be able to detach those two. So if I was to put those two on, I won't be able to, but I'll just put them on the side, and then, you know, this is going to be a big improvement already, you know. And you could always attach another one to the back if you really felt like it needed more, you know. So I'm going to put that one on. I'm going to put that one on the other thing, because I do have these, but these are for TO22s really, which is that package down there, and the ones that's on the board. I can't be bothered to flip it over. So I'm going to actually put those on these ones down here, just to increase the heat sinking potential of those. And I'm going to move away those caps that are right next to it as well. There's one right behind it, so probably just going to move that one on some flying leads and just glue it down to the board with maybe some hot glue or something like that. It's easy to get it off, but it'll hold it in place, and it just doesn't get dried out by the heat of those things, because they do generate quite some heat. Not shitloads, but that is part of the power supply down there. Just a little to the daughter section, let's say, for the different voltages on this thing. So, alright, so I'm going to drill 2 holes in that. Marked off there. Get them centre punched. Drill them out, screw it down. I'm leaving those be where they are for now, because they're in the right position. So I don't want to take them off. Alrighty, yeah, so that will stink a lot less. As you can still see some of the, that was just literally all over it, was like that. Ringing. Ready for desoldering now. I'm just going to desolder all of it. These are the connectors though, those two. So what I'll do with those, I'll desolder everything except 1 or 2. And then I'll apply fresh solder to everyone except the 1 or 2 that are left, just to keep it held into the board. And then I'll desolder the last 2 and then apply fresh solder to those as well. And the same for that little one with the 4, except I'll just do 3. Fresh solder on the 3 once it's been desoldered, and then you know the same. It's just to keep it held in the board while you do it. And that, yeah, that's the voltage regulator, which is still working actually, but they do have a tendency to go out. But I don't have a replacement for that right now, so I won't be replacing that right now. But yeah, so here are my leads for the power coming in, and they do look thinner than that, but most of this is insulation. I do have some other in here, these maybe a tiny bit thicker, so I may use those, but I'm going to need the earth wire for that anyway. And look at that bargain, look, there's a free eyelet on that ground wire for the, basically for the English version. The UK market will have had a 3rd pin on here as standard, and that will have gone to that. They will have soldered that to there at the factory, so that's nice because I can just solder straight to that. And my preparation for the heatsink, so that's the bit where I'm going to add it with the, oops, through those holes on the back. Those screws there will go through the back and then they bite into the body of this. They're from this, so they're an exact fit. So this is the bridge rectifier. I'm going to have more in my ESD strap now so I can touch this. Can really affect semiconductors with static. So the flat one is a plus, but
In case I forget that, I have just drawn it on the heatsink for now. It may or may not come off, but it's okay, you can always test them out. It's easy for me to wire them up, you know, because it'll have flying leads. So yeah, the plus, the minus, because all you need to really know is the plus, and that's the flat one, but you know, in case they may stay on there, they may not, they may heat up. So you got the two AC either side, and then you've got the plus and the minus. So yeah, that'll screw directly in there, and it screws to the back on there, you know, because I'm adding more thermal content, basically more heat to that, so I'm adding, basically it doubles the thermal mass. It's almost as heavy as the entire thing was. Not quite doubling it, but it's 52. That's 20. Still, it's half as much again, isn't it? So it's good enough. Well, it's a little under half as much again. Still, it's like this. I could add more to the back if I still think it's getting warm. That would be a pain in the ass after you put all the stuff on, but place those two on the right with the two on the left. This doesn't focus. Because yeah, they were from the power socket, so these two are original, but yeah, they're looking pretty beat up and oxidised. I keep all the spare screws from anything that I disassemble, so like a whole range of them that I can choose from, and they're exactly the right size and shape and just nice colour again, you know. So overall, when you see those in the socket, it's a huge difference, even though it's a very subtle thing. I've already changed a couple of really oxidised screws on the back. Overall, it's in great shape, but it does have a couple of oxidised screws, and they really let it down, you know, in how it looks overall, you know. So just a real simple little change like that. Can't focus on that because you get the keyboard in the back now. A little change like that, and the whole power socket will look great, you know, instead of like looking vaguely nasty with those. And the original one's coming out now. So there it is, cut off. It's not a big deal to put a new one of those on, it's pretty easy, so don't really need to talk through it. It's just, I'm putting a new switch on too. Got it here. I'm going to wire it the right way up, so it's not easy to turn it off upside down. There you've got the red one, connects to the red one inside the switch, so one of them comes all the way down to the live terminal here. The neutral comes from the back of the plug to this one here. The short red one goes from the switch to this one, and the other one goes directly from the socket to the switch. So you've got two on the switch that these two basically, and then they're disconnected in the switch, and the neutral always stays connected to the neutrals inside there. This is repurposed, but it's basically brand new, and it's rated to the right setting, so I'm going to just solder that one on. And then you've got the earth wire coming off the third pin, which is my little vice over there, and that will connect to that solar tab like we discussed earlier. Here it is in the tiny vice waiting, so we're going to put that one on first, put a heat shrink on it, get it down the other end as I've put over the tab, a little bit of the way anyway. It just keeps them solder joints strong as well. And then the live and the neutral will connect to the other two. You know, one of which will be going down here, the other go to the switch, and It's like, it's a little bit you know, puzzling out, but it's actually quite simple. Like, don't overthink it with switches, is my advice. So what you're going to do is, the temptation is, I'm not going to reuse that, so I don't need to. Sorry, I'm going to reuse that, so I don't need to desolder it. What we do is, I need to desolder into those. Resolder a new cable into those. So what I'll do is I'll heat that up and use a desoldering gun to get rid of the excess. But what the thing is the temptation is just to cut the wires, but then you're left with this like wrap of wire. I've got my keys ready for retro writing. This is from the JX-8P. It's pretty early in the morning now and the sun's going to come out around here pretty soon. So I'm going to mix the solution in here and then pour it gently in here through the bucket. Because the bucket's got a little thing, you can pour it against the side and it'll slide under. It's a sodium bicarbonate solution and this is a metal rod. And it's weighting the keys down. They're weighted keys, so they lift up at the back and then pop out of the water, so on the solution. So that's no good because then they'll get a chemical burn. So yeah, you can see they're a bit off yellow. They went in there yesterday, a couple of false starts into two different buckets like that, but this is better because you get an even colour. They're all in the same thing. We can get a nice sunlight will come through the sides instead of not going through that. I've put tin foil underneath, so it reflects the sunlight up into the solution as well. So I've done this a few times before, but not with so many keys at once. So yeah, it's always a good trick. It works really well, but you have to keep them under the surface. So this metal rod is just stopping both sides from coming out. So I'll just fill it up to like here. So that they're under, good and under, and then I'll keep an eye on it over the course of the day really. So just take some pictures now. So what they look like when they're on the go. I see some bubbles in there. I can't see much of what's going on through the screen here, so yeah, looking good, looking good. Nice full sunny day. You need to leave them in there for a good few hours. White's the best colour to do, although I have had success with varying colours of plastic. The least with red. Will make, like say a record button on a mixing desk or something, it will make the red go a little bit paler, but yeah, it was like kind of an orangey, weirdy, pinky, weird red anyway because of the yellow, you know. So yeah, white is the best colour to be trying to get to return to white. Even better than beige, because beige has got a tiny bit of yellow in there already, you know, so you can return it to beige, but you know, loads of those old electronic stuff's made out of beige plastic, but these are white, so yeah, hoping that they will go back to the normal colour. I've only got today to work at it now, so they've got a good few hours yet. They'll still come over to this side, to the right here, and that laundry will be dry then, and I'll move that out of the way because look, you see shadows are still pretty high because it's really high. So yeah, I'll leave that longer, and this works really well to reflect whatever light from the bottom back into the solution, you know, so it gets direct and, you know, reflected. It just, then the whole solution is full of UV strengthening rays, because it will happen very slowly if it's just in the bleaching agent, but it'll take a lot longer and basically, you know, forever. Like it did make a bit of progress yesterday though, with the kind of false starts and different backing, you know, but now they're all in the same solution. It's better, you know, the colour's going to be the same, it gets them to, you know, so that's important. This metal worked out really well also, because it's holding the keys down under a bit which is like already white still anyway, and under the, you know, mechanism of the synth, so you will not see any potential shadow that will leave, because if something was on top of here it would leave a shadow, you know, and it would change colour differently where the shadow was, so you want to watch out for stuff like that. But those parts that metal rod is covering are underneath the mechanism of the keys, so you know, you won't see any colour change there. Anyway, it's only when you take the keys out of the keyboard that you see that they're two different colours anyway at the moment. So I think it's just some damage, but this will take out nicotine staining as well, this method, so you know, if you have got an ex-smoker's keyboard, you know, give it a good wash and then put it in this sort of thing and it cleans them up a treat. It's amazing. So back with the JX-8P. I've got a branded battery to put in there instead of the non-branded one. I mean, yeah, you do see some difference on battery life, basically. I don't think any of these things leak, but yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to put that one in. Still looks really nifty, this little holder in there. It's really low profile, I think, so I know which ones to be ordering now. Sorry about the glare on that. Just a handful of these caps now to replace the other ones in the in the basically filtering caps. These ones are the red dot I marked. They're non-polarised. I'm going to leave those for now, but I will be working on some other synths soon, so I may just order those when I order some more bits. Got the chorus chips here with 2 sockets on this model. They're here, it's those two. These are the drivers, you don't need to replace those. Just these which handle the audio. And these are a new X5, I've used these before. So sockets are good. Helps to reduce the noise as well, apparently, with the gold plated ones. It's like I'm not sure whether you really notice the difference, but over time it keeps the conductivity better, which is less noise in these things, quite sensitive to noise. And whilst you do want some noise, you don't want it to be going which you can hear it doing. My Alpha Juno doesn't have that, but this XP and the 106 and the 3P that I've just got do. So I'll be replacing those, but I'll only do it when it's making a big stage C kind of noise. You know, I don't want to just replace them anyway. It's like, might as well get all of the life out of them until they're gone. These are freely available now. I wouldn't recommend buying new old stock versions of the original was it M3009? It's not worth it. You get new ones, are cheaper as well. Your brand new chip, you know. So yeah, just a handful now to replace, and then I'm going to put it back in and give it a test. Probably going to desolder those on this output switch, and then just soak them in some kind of acetone or degreasant just to get everything out of there. I'm sure that these have been worked on, you can see them underneath. So probably somebody sprayed contact spray in there, so I'll get that out. Just give them a really good deep clean. And then yeah, these are the non-polarised ones, which is just in the audio signal path, which you probably don't need replacing at all, you know, to be honest. It doesn't have any weird sounds, but I don't know, because with DigiKey and mouse and stuff, you need to order a certain amount of things before you get free shipping. So it's kind of like, you know, you can pay for shipping or you can have capacitors instead. So it's kind of like, you know, if it comes to that, then I'll just take the capacitors instead and replace them. But as I said, they don't really need it. But, you know, I replace every other capacitor on there. So sometimes you think, why not? This one just do the rest. I'm a bit of a completist when it comes to doing renovations. So, yeah. You do get over it eventually after it's been in the synth and it's all working good, you know. You'll forget about it after a while. But you know, while you're in here, and this makes me laugh, it just looks like there's been an explosion and they've all fallen over. I probably want to replace those two actually, because they're power transistors, and somebody's been in and out of here as well, and if you just even touch them, it can get a static shock and it will affect the performance of them and how they operate with semiconductors. So, and they do get very, very warm. One of these, you can see it's a bit scorched on there as well. One of these, which was right next to it, was scorched on the side just from being near it, you know, so they obviously get pretty hot. Now I've got heat sinks for those as well, but I think I just put them on the new thing once they come, you know, they come in soon. But I'll put it back in probably and give it a test before I replace those as well. But that's the thing, is you do really need to do kind of regular checks and keep your eye on what you're doing. You just want to do a couple at a time, you know. Like I worked my way across, I like, okay, I've done that one and that one, and then I did that one, you know, so you know the values are right as you're working through, but even so, it's gonna need to check it as much as possible. Anyway, so now it's, yeah, take those out, take these caps out and replace them, and then one step closer. to the full restoration. Finally finished the JX-8P, complete restoration. I think I might do is to put a bit of this silicone stuff that makes it a bit darker, so it's looking a little bit fadey and a bit scratchy with the memory cartridge going in and out. Anyway, yeah, it's like a complete restoration. This one had never broken down, and it doesn't have any. All the plastic's looking in really good condition around here, you know. There's a couple of small bits, but often they have a really big nasty looking bit where the volume control. The screen's in great condition, the membrane is in really good condition as well. It's like an early model, so it has a really nice sound. So yeah, there's nothing that had actually gone wrong with it, but it has a marked tendency to fail in this bridge rectifier, which is used to be here, both of them used to be here, so I've changed the specification of those to be much higher, and I mounted that one on the heatsink because that one gets really, really hot. This one doesn't get so hot, but I mounted a separate heatsink on that one anyway, and I've made the heatsink bigger with these extra pieces of aluminium and another radiator, and there's another small one on the back to give it more dissipation to the thing, because this is adding now heat, whereas these three need to get rid of the heat as well. Those are new transistors and a voltage regulator. They're all new designs, they're not new old stock. I've compared the old ones and got a new equivalent, so they're not new old stock, which is better. I've replaced every single component on my power supply. This one actually has a bleed resistor there for more modern electronics like this we'll get to in a minute. It requires a faster power down, and this holds its power for a long time unless you put a bleed resistor in it across the terminals basically. So all the resistors are new, all the capacitors are new, even the film caps, because why not, there's only a couple of them. I've reflowed these connectors. Yeah, all the resistors are new. That's a new old stock IC because they don't make those anymore. Yeah, so that power supply is completely rebuilt. Put a new fuse over there. I've put a new power switch on there and a new socket, so it takes just a standard 3-pin socket now like this. Keyboards, like fully disassembled the keyboard and cleaned it. Kind of bent around some of they've got a funny design of the things these for the velocity sensing and stuff. It's like 2 wafer thin switches. Some of those are a bit bent, so I bent them all back into position. The gauges. Retro-brighted the keys to make them whiter. They were a little bit yellow, now they're some white. Yeah, got rid of some surface rust and stuff on some of the metals. And the metal panel of this thing. Installed a whole new aftertouch strip, which meant digging the old one out, which was a lengthy process, but I managed to get to it. It wasn't so difficult. So this is the new aftertouch strip here. Going up to there. Need to just close those heat shrinks. That goes up to here, which is the aftertouch sensing circuit. So I kind of twiddled a few resistor values in there to put that adjustable resistor on just to fine tune it. So now the aftertouch works great. Looking to do some stuff with it actually, like send the aftertouch out as MIDI, because it only has 3 destinations for it here, which is those 3. But if you send it out via MIDI, you can change it with like a little box. You can change the command and then adjust the pulse with aftertouch, stuff like this. Because this one, I added this, which is a mod coupled together with a new CPU and a new ROM and a flash memory module there and a new battery with a holder. Just so this has loads of patch storage on there, so you don't have to use cartridges, which is amazing. So I've got a lot of patches stored on there now. And yeah, this is pulse width modulation. This is where the original counterboards were, and this like reduces the power consumption by like 650 milliamps, something crazy. So it's a really small board, but a really massive power reduction. So yeah, what else I've done? These as part of the power supply. I've changed those transistors there and put radiators on them. to dissipate the heat because they get very hot. Again, I've used new designs for those. They're just PMP NPN combo, and you can see there's resistors lying down. There's another couple around there. I've just sort of physically moved them away from the heat producing transistors, and also gone for higher rating temperature wise on those caps, you know, and just sort of bent them out of the way so as far away as physically can be possible. I took the original ones out and they were literally scorched, even with an air gap of about 1/2 centimetre. They're getting so hot. So I replaced every single electrolytic on the board. All of those. And here's when they start to get really quite a lot. So this is the audio output section, but they've got the chorus on there. Most of the electrolytics are for voltage filtering of the power supply, but some of them, there's a good 40 or so which are the audio path, and I decided to replace those as well. And I've kind of reflowed all of these connections as well to the jacks. I've soaked this output switch, which the output audio fully passes through the switch. It gets a bit dirty and can make noises and stuff, so crackling noise and stuff. So I've soaked that in alcohol and give it a good clean, contact cleaned it and lubed it up and put that back in. The other one, it's just a memory protect switch. It's actually okay, that one. What else has happened? So many things. New chorus chips in there, you can see in the sockets, to new replacement. Just a clone of the original design, so it sounds the same. Didn't actually make much difference to the sound of that. The originals are still okay, but all of these switches are new. Replaced all of those, so they have a nice new action on all of those, so all of those are brand new. The screen's actually in really good condition. It's had some work done on it, on the brightness. There's a couple of capacitors on the screen board and on the switches board. They've been replaced as well, and on there, so all the electrolytics have been replaced in the entire synth. Because once I'd gone so far, I thought, well, I may as well do the other ones as well. So yeah, they're all ready for a new lease of life, and it'll be good for another 40 years now. And the thing is, it never broke down. Like, it never got to the stage where this went, or that dried that capacitor out too much. You know, it was dry. It was going to happen, but it hadn't actually happened yet. So preventative maintenance. So yeah, and you can kind of see that in how, you know, things are cared for sometimes, you know. So yeah, I might put a heatsink on top of that, because it does get really warm and it'll stop it, because they get dry inside and then they start to go like buzzing acoustically, you know. So I might fit a heatsink on top of that, something like this, and just glue it on there, and just to dissipate a bit more of the heat. Yeah, I just need to tie these down, and yeah, it's great. Like, it's a really nice synth. I never really used one like this before, but it has an amazing sound. And with the new operating system, it's way easier to program, because when you're programming, like without a programmer, I mean, I may get one, but you can go to parameter and then edit, and then you can go up and down the parameters with these, which you can't with the original OS. You have to press like 1 on, and then you're in DCO range, you know, and then you have to press 1, 2, and then you're in waveform. So if you want to go to, you know, if you want to go 1 up, you still have to press 1, 3, you know. But with this new OS, you can just go 1, 1 waveform, right, up 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then you're in the, you know, 2, 1, you know. So if you want to quickly navigate to the last one, you just go 9, 1, and then you're in envelope, and then you can just go up and down with the arrow keys. I don't know why they didn't do that in the original, but they didn't. So it's way easier to program without a programmer with this new OS, and it's got like a sys and you can import tones, export tones, whole banks as well really easily. So yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I'll give you a sound demo, but it sounds very I've got a poor cable at the moment. I did just put it on to test it. put across these don't have any strain relief, so I'm going to, across the body of the jacks, like the 4 things, I'm going to glue like a piece that goes right across each one's. Piece. Yeah, it's gone. Anyway, yeah, so I just glue the bodies of the jacks together to give them a bit more stability, because they just don't have it. So when you turn it on, it cycles through the oscillators, checks them all. It's got 2 oscillators per voice. It shows you what version it is. It's obviously not the original version. So you can see that there is an OLED replacement screen that you can get. I'm kind of tempted, but this one still looks pretty nice, you know. But a lot of other users want, you know, to replace it with one of these. So I could always sell the original screen. I think it looks, you know, because I've brought it so far into the modern realm. Oh, I have to put these slider caps back on. I think it would be nice to have a new screen. Put it in the headphones. That was the chorus that you heard then. Much less on the what do we call it? Standard output. But you hear the buzzing, but that's just a speaker. So yeah, I mean there's loads of things with the functions on anyway. This is something I did which it's got like an inverse envelope. It's pretty unforgiving when you get a wrong note though.